Hey, shalom everyone. I'm Amir Tsarfati, and we're back from Connect here in the Jezreel Valley in Galilee, Israel. And together with me today in Author's Corner, Pastor Steve Yon. Shalom, Steve. You are at the land of the frozen and chosen. You're in Parker, Colorado. How are you, my friend?
Doing well, and we are a little frozen here today. It was about 20 degrees Fahrenheit when I got up this morning and drove in. We have snow on the grass and ice on the roads, so a little bit slippery, but made it okay. And excited to be here in the office this morning talking to you.
I envy you. Although I posted a few days ago a photo of the most magnificent rainbow that we just had outside of Connect, I must confess, I envy you guys when it comes to snow in January. However, I would love to see the snow, enjoy it for a couple hours, and then give it back to you because the rest is a big mess and a headache. Don't you think so?
Well, it was wonderful. I know for you to see the rainbow up where you were. I don't think it was quite as fun to see the rainbow down in Ashdod, judging by what you post on posted on Telegram. It looked like they maybe got a little too much water down
Yeah,
that direction.
that's true. So today,
Yeah.
both of us are super excited because we're going to talk about my very first book, which basically brought you into my life as someone who helped me with the book writing. Because we've known each other before that, but you
Yeah.
were tourists that I had. You
Yeah.
were the son of the pastor that I led the tours of his church, and you were a good friend. And I've got to know you, and also Jason Elam, because you guys both co-authored fiction books before. But that's it. That was Steve Yon, and then something happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I was working at the church one day and got a call and it was my dad saying, "Hey, if you got some time, can you run down to HT Novak's house? Amir is here and would like to talk with you." And
Yeah.
I said, "Definitely, get some time with Amir." And we sat there and you told me I've got all these teachings and just need to get them onto paper.
Yeah.
And we talked that through. I was a little bit skeptical at first because I'm a fiction writer, and I thought, well, I don't know about writing nonfiction, but I'm happy to give it a go. And I know we met for a number
Yeah.
of days down in my folks' basement, and then just started the project.
Yeah. People don't understand that it's one thing to stand behind a podium and preach and teach and give a message from the pulpit, but it's another thing to sit down and put it in writing. And it's a completely different set of skills that I found out I don't have. It used to take me days to write a newsletter, which we used to publish every week, and then I mean I was never satisfied because look, it's not my first language, not my mother tongue,
That's the thing.
and so I knew from the very get-go that if I ever start publishing books that are based on my teachings, I will need help from a professional. And to be honest, Steve, I don't think I could ever find someone else that can do what you do, because it's not only that you are born again, spirit filled, a brother in the Lord, but you also someone who's who knows Israel, you love Israel, and you agree with me theologically, but you also know me personally. So
Mm.
it is much easier to be my mouthpiece in a way, when or my the hand that is holding the pen, when you know the person, when you totally agree with them theologically, and when you're, gifted a writer like yourself. So, it was, when HT suggested you, it didn't take me more than a second to say absolutely. I just didn't think you would be interested because I knew you as a fiction writer, and this is a different ball
Mm.
game, And so
Well, I know,
spend yeah,
yeah, I was gonna say collaboration comes out of friendship.
correct.
Otherwise it sounds wooden. It sounds very stilted. Because if I didn't know you, I wouldn't be able to write with your voice. I wouldn't be able to have it sound like Amir. It would end up sounding like Steve, or it end up sounding like some strange AI creation.
Yeah,
But because I know you and we've talked so much and spent so much time together,
yeah,
that's what allows those words to sound like Amir. And I love when I see reviews on Amazon that says this just sounds so much like Amir. I can picture Amir saying this, and it's like, well, exactly, that's what it's supposed to do, because it is you, and all I'm doing is putting it down onto
yeah.
paper.
Yeah, and as I said, you've done such a good job that it does sound exactly like me, but in better English. And you know, a lot of people are asking me why are you even exposing or revealing the fact that you have a ghostwriter on your books? And to me, it's like because I do. I have. I mean, it's very simple. I mean,
Yeah.
I love studying and I love teaching and I love sharing the word, but I don't have that specific gift of being able to take those things and put them in writings. And I think that this is why God gifted others to do that. And this is the essence of being different members of one body.
Yeah.
And yes, these are my teachings, and of course, this is my book. But I love to acknowledge the help that I received in getting those books out. And again, the last hour, this is the first book. And to be honest with you, Steve, I did not think I'm gonna have more because it was like a summary of everything I taught so far, and that's
Yeah.
it.
But we were that's what we were thinking, it was going to be a one and done. I mean, and first of all, just back to what you were saying, there's there are two philosophies when it comes to ghostwriters. One is that the person is really a ghost, is really behind the scenes. I would be like Amir's little secret. Is and that's ridiculous. That just turns to scandal. That turns to, well, do you know Amir doesn't really write his books? Well, yes, he does write his books, but it's just there's someone else who's moving the hand. It's like,
Yeah,
Paul didn't write his letters; he had someone else writing the letters for him. So uh,
but it's
there's
still
never
Paul's
any,
letters.
never any, yeah, there's exactly, and there's never any dirty little secret hidden away. We've always been upfront that
Yeah,
it's Amir's teachings, and then I just write those teachings. But then when we came to last hour, came to this first book, our thought was, hey, you've got all these great teachings. Let's get these into book form, and that would be great. How exciting would that be to have a book? And the emphasis was on that, that word a. But
yeah.
now we see what's happened since then.
I mean, in my wildest dreams, I would never, ever, ever imagine that. How many years later? I mean, we're talking about 8 now.
That sounds
Uh,
about right. Yeah, I can't
yeah,
even
yeah.
remember.
I mean,
I get
the first book is registered as a book from 2018, so less than that even, or
Yeah,
almost 7 years only. And Steve, our work together yielded a million and a half books that have been sold so
yeah,
far. And again, to God be the glory. We did not plan
exactly.
all of this. I mean, we had no clue. And so, almost 7 years in the making. This is the first book, and because it's the first book, I thought I better put in it everything. I
It's
tried to
right.
just put everything there. You
And
probably
and that's
remember that.
that's what's so wonderful about this book. It was all the teachings that you had done in the past, and it's bringing it in where this, I think, more than any other book, this gives Amir. This gives your teachings from start to finish. Um, you just look through the chapters. God wants you to know his plans, with Isaiah 46, the near and the far fulfillments of prophecy. I'm just looking here at the list here. God's chosen people, Israel, God's chosen people, which in a second, I want you to, if you would, just talk about what we're just putting together, or what we've just put together for Israel, God's chosen people. But then we talk about the rapture for new chapters. We talk about the Antichrist, the days of Ezekiel, which we're coming back to full circle with exploring Ezekiel. So much of this is like the overview. This is the one you
Exactly.
want just in all of Amir's teaching in Cliff Notes form. This is it. And then when you want the expansion of that, that's what you find in the rest of the books.
That's true. And that's
So,
how I felt. And again, it's because we felt the urgency of the times and the fact that we might not be able to write more. I mean,
yeah,
and so let's put everything yeah, for me, and again, one of the most important thing for me was to share my own personal testimony because, you know, it's it's one thing to teach about things and another thing to tell about yourself. and
yeah,
and I
yeah.
think that people find it easier to connect to you and to your story when they
Yeah.
hear
I
your story.
I know, we started that section saying that it's important to tell people where you sit before you tell them where you stand. Tell them where you
That's
sit
true.
before you tell them where you sit. So they know who you are, they know your background, and once they know a little bit more about you, then they can better
Yeah,
understand
correct.
what your teaching is. And I don't know if you want to take just a brief moment here and share a little bit about what you
Well,
talked about
I
in that
mean,
testimony time.
we don't have much time, but I mean, it's basically the story of how a little kid who grew up in foster care and wanted to kill himself at the age of 17 because he found no hope in this world, how he found hope, how he found the truth, the way, and the life when people told him about Yeshua, the Messiah, how actually God, by His sovereign, amazing grace, revealed Himself to him in a very miraculous way, literally using the circumstances that I until then I count as miserable, and then I found them amazing because if it wasn't for me growing up in foster care and working hard since I was, I don't know, 10, 12 years old in a grocery store every morning and every evening. And if it wasn't for the fact that in the morning I went to uh, put together the morning newspaper and found out that this big advertisement for the Jesus film of Campus Crusade that was shown in Jerusalem uh, for a couple of days only, and it wasn't for the fact that I was exposed to all of that and having gone to see the movie, then accepting the Lord that night right there, going back home, and my whole life changed, and I was kicked out of the house, but I wasn't, you know, broken. In fact, I was fixed. Um,
Mm,
and of course, the story did not stop there because the hand of God was upon me throughout my military service. From someone who wanted to run away from the military, I found myself a commander, deputy governor of Jericho, being in the center of world's attention as the IDF pulled out of Jericho and implemented the Oslo Accords with the Palestinians. So, I mean, I found myself in situations where, you know, I could never imagine. And all of that led me to where I am today. I mean, I would not change
yeah,
anything. If I had to go through all of this again, the abuse, the pain, the sorrow, the tears, the all of that in order to find the Messiah, I would do it all over again. Because I mean, you could grow. I mean, think about it. You can grow up in a nice home with functional family, with lots of means and money and whatever, great education, but you can still be a heathen. who has no clue of God and of salvation, of his need to
Yeah.
be saved, and eventually you'll find yourself broken also, maybe only in a much later part of your life. So I mean, the whole being shattered to pieces part of my life was earlier, thankfully.
Mm.
Not that I did not experience a lot of difficulties and to some degree
Yeah,
pain
definitely.
later on, but we all do. But I'm just saying this is it. So this is my maiden voyage in the books world, and I
Yeah.
put in it my personal story. And this is, when people ask me, uh, you know, give me a summary of what you teach and who you are. This is it, I guess. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
And you know, it wasn't it wasn't easy because I'm not I once you expose everything and you open up, you can't take it back. That's it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so that
Yeah.
book later on, that book gave me the courage to also record my testimony and to on video and all of that. So it was a very
Which,
good thing.
which you can find on YouTube, and it's a very powerful
Yeah,
video.
it's called Hero
It-
Israel, I think, and
yeah.
you can just click on YouTube Amir Tsofati testimony and you'll find it.
Yeah.
Um, so
You
Steve,
know, I
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say I know that you putting that down on paper wasn't easy, but honestly, us working together, um, in some ways was easy, but in some ways was difficult too. Just trying to get to know each other in a different way, get to know each other in this working kind of relationship, and also me learning more about you and your teaching. I can remember finishing coming to the end of the manuscript, and we had talked obviously throughout the whole thing, but then it came to the end, and then you asked me what version uh, of the Bible did you use in this book? And I said, well, some of it is the ESV, some of it's the NIV. And you said, well, I use the New King James version, and I just remember my heart sinking because I mean I know what I always use when I teach and when I preach and when I read. I don't have a Calvary background, so New King James was foreign to me. And I remember going back through the entire manuscript. If any of you have read this book, you know how much scripture is in this book. And I had to go through every single one of them and change them from either the NIV or the ESV to the New King James Version to match. And that was uh, that was a frustrating couple of days, but I never made the mistake again.
Well, there's some habits that are hard to break, and for me, I needed consistency between the messages that I preach from a pulpit and the messages that I give through written
Yeah,
paper. I mean, and I wanted it to be the exact same way. Um, people can watch it online as well. So
yeah.
yeah, not
And,
again.
and you think that would have occurred to me as I'm going through and I'm writing this and I'm changing what you're saying on the videos and what we talked about, changing it to NIV or ESV because that's what I read and that's easier. You think it would have occurred to me? No, maybe I need to keep this the New King James version,
Yeah.
the way that Amir already has it. But yeah, that was on me. That was totally on me.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
anyway, again, thankfully there was one book publisher that took a chance. It's funny. It's the only book we published with that publisher, and yet, they were giving us the chance to do it with
yeah.
them, and I was super
Well,
humbled. Yeah.
yeah, well, I'll always be grateful to Baker for publishing this book, and that's why when they came back to us, what, a couple years ago, and said, "Hey, we would really love to do a study guide to go along with last hour. We're like, hey, we would love to have you do that, both for those who use the book, but also for Baker being able to put that out, because
Yeah,
they were a good team and they did us well. But then once we found Harvest, uh, with Harvest we found a family,
correct.
and yeah,
And another thing that I was humbled uh, with in this book is that Pastor David Jeremiah actually wrote the
oh man,
foreword. I mean, it's a 4 pages forward that he wrote. And also on the back of the book, he wrote a piece. And also I had people from all walks of life writing uh, parts of, I mean, the acknowledgments. We're talking about,
endorsements, yeah,
no, it was actually, uh, you know, how do you call it? Acknowledgments,
the endorsements in the beginning,
endorsements.
yeah,
Yeah, endorsements.
yeah,
So yeah, so I mean, when you read, you're talking about Ann Graham Lotz, you're talking about
mm,
Jason Elam, the kicker for the Broncos, Kathy Ireland, the famous
mm,
supermodel of I think the
mhm,
80s or the 90s. Of she's now
yeah,
CEO of a huge company that she owns, and she's a strong believer. And I've guided
mm,
her and her family in Israel, as well as been part of some other events in the U.S. We have Jan Markell, Pastor Jack Hibbs, and even Senator at the time, Senator Manny Pacquiao from the Philippines, world boxing champion. All of them wrote some beautiful endorsements, and it just,
mhm,
and again, that's the first book, and you have these type of caliber people that write that, and you're like, I don't deserve all of this. I just don't.
mm,
And God opened the doors to find a publisher, opened the door to have all these people writing these things, and of course the book was well received. And the first one is always the hardest because it's like the the,
yeah,
the stork that flies at the edge of the V shape. It's the one that gets most of the resistance, and
yeah.
but it is the first, and we will always look at it as the firstborn, huh?
Yeah, and it also for the longest time, it was the one that sold the most. I think Revealing Revelation may have passed that, uh, by now, but I don't know for sure. But for a long time, I mean, the book just took off, and then, again, I think it was, David Jeremiah that we can thank for some of the book sales too, because not only did he endorse it, but then uh, or write the forward, but then he endorsed it too,
Yeah,
and that was just such a blessing,
it was.
for you and for the
And
ministry.
again, I've told him many times, and even when I came to speak at his church, he was very gracious to call me because he wasn't there, to call me a couple days later and to thank me and to, I mean, what a humble uh, man. And anyway,
Yeah,
Steve, a little portion of this book is now turning into its own thing that we
I was
just
just gonna
doing.
say, yeah,
Yeah, and you can see the normal size of a book, and you can clearly see that we just wrote a smaller pocket or smaller guide, also smaller when it comes to the length. And this is something that sat heavy on my heart in light of October 7th and everything that happened after that. Millions of people around the world are claiming that the Israel of the Bible is not Israel of today. Thus, the land of Israel is not does not belong to the people that live there today. And I just had to put it all in writing. It's called the Israel Decree: Understanding God's Unbreakable Covenant with His People and their land. This is the first time I show it to anyone. It's uh, it's coming out in a few months, but this is something that it's cheaper, it's smaller, it's faster to read, and it's so valuable. And we want
mm,
to get it to the hands of as many as possible because there's so much deception that the enemy is sowing in the hearts of believers. See, I don't expect much from
Yeah.
non-believers, to be honest, but believers that claim to believe in the Bible and the God of Israel, and for them to not acknowledge the things of God, it breaks my heart. So this is it.
Well, it's a little fire plug of a book. It's small, compact, but it has got so much power in it that you turn one of those caps and the it just comes pouring out. Especially, I think we both agree chapter 3 is something that
Oh,
every believer needs to read,
yeah,
because of the power that's in
absolutely.
that's in
Absolutely.
that chapter.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Steve, look, I think we've covered uh, a lot about our first work together in writing a book. Of the last hour, my first ever book, the most
Mm.
comprehensive, work on the various teachings that I give around the world. And, just if you don't have it, you may want to have it and read it and maybe even give it to someone else. Because even just for the testimony itself, for the
Yeah,
story of how I came to faith, I think it's worth it. Anyway,
yeah.
I'm looking forward to having another chapter with you next time, Steve. And next time, we're going to speak about our first ever fiction book,
Fiction book, yeah.
Operation Yoktan. So until then, thank you, Steve, and thank you, everyone, for watching Author's Corner. I'm Amir Tsarfati, and this was Author's Corner from Connect here in Galilee, Israel, and Parker, Colorado. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everyone. God bless you, and shalom.